Red's gone. It's dead. It's gone forever, Chris. No, I think red's a great color. I understand Dockside was banned. It's gone. But red is still great. I think we should still inherit red. I think we should still use red. I think we should still abuse red. I think we're still going to work with red. And I think between EDH and CEDH, we can find out that red's really not in a bad place at all.
Sit down and have a conversation with us.
Let's do it.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Turning Point Meta, where we discuss the decisions, techniques, and maneuvers of CEDH. I'm Chris, and my co-host, Nate.
Hello, everyone.
Hey guys, as you guys already know, we're going over red today. You want to talk a little bit about
red? I've nailed it.
We'll see how well you do with blue.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll give that one a shot.
Okay.
But yeah, talking about red today. So like we've been doing, we're going to talk about red's place in the meta. We brought up Dockside Extortionist. I don't think that's really a topic that we even want to really discuss too much today, because I think there's really great pieces in red, both casually and competitively. I think red's in a great place. I think red is not dead. I don't think red is in a place where we can't play it anymore. It's gone. I think there's really interesting pieces and fun things to do in red still.
Yeah, I really enjoy red for sure. We could definitely get into some of the stats here soon enough.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first thing that we would probably want to just get into is what we always do, and we're going to discuss the EDH side of red. So the EDH side of red, we take these from EDH Rec. If it's played over 10%, we will talk about it with you guys. And if it's under 10%, we won't. So if there are pieces that you see in your standard play group, obviously you're not going to see it here if it's under 10%. It's just a baseline, so that way everybody understands what we're talking about.
We really want to hear about what your favorite red card is. Be sure to let us know and tell us a story about when the card just kind of popped off and people they underestimated your red card. Nate, you want to go over the first red card over the EDH staples?
Yeah. Okay, so number one on our list, and just real quick as well, so this one is going to be a lot like white, where green had a lot of like kind of set things that it did. It set ramp.
Did a lot of things.
Yeah, green actually does a lot, even though it's the least played of EDH, which was very strange, but whatever. But it's not going to be in that kind of order. So these are just going to be statistical from the top down at this point. Mm-hmm. So number one on the list is Blasphemous Act. Blasphemous Act is 8 and a red for a sorcery. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield, and Blasphemous Act deals 13 damage to each creature.
Huh. That's going to kill most things, I would imagine.
Exactly. Blasphemous Act is a great board wipe. Most things will not survive a Blasphemous Act unless you're really going tall in some kind of green deck, I think.
Indestructible?
Yeah, indestructibility.
Sure.
It's also a great piece. Like white and, green also gives indestructibility in a lot of ways.
Yeah, yeah.
There's like black undying, right? There's like ways that things can quote unquote survive this.
Come back from the graveyard.
Right,
sure.
Exactly. There's also some people that use Blasphemous Act as a combo piece. For
instance,
Repercussion is a card that sees some play. So Repercussion, I'm not 100% on the wording, but Repercussion, when it deals damage to a creature that players control, any excess damage is pushed onto the opponent.
Ooh.
So if they have a massive board state and you Blasphemous Act, chances are they're dead unless you have a ton of creatures as well. Then you all die.
Sure.
Which...
Draw.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ends in a draw. Who cares?
Okay.
Right? You're having fun. You're playing EDH.
Yeah.
Blasphemous Act is great. I like Blasphemous Act. I saw a little bit of play competitively in Dargo decks. I think we're playing it for a bit.
Sure.
When there was a creature heavy meta.
Magda plays it sometimes, every so often. It's a little bit expensive, but realistically, sometimes it's just 1 red.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is really great for it. I mean, getting a board wipe in a red deck, cool. I mean, like mono red decks in general, you'll play all your stuff or whatever, and then eventually you won't be able to attack with them anymore. So it's like, cool, I might as well just get rid of the entire board because now I can't block with any of my guys. I can't attack with any of my guys. So, might as well just, Wrath of God, essentially, because nothing's really coming back from this.
I think the main reason why we personally don't play Blasphemous Act is, number one, we can give indestructibility even in CEDH. The main reason is if there's not a ton of creatures on the battlefield and it's not discounted, sometimes it feels bad. On top of that, things don't really get that high in power and toughness in our format, really. So 13 damage just seems very excessive. We like things around, like, Anger of the Gods, for instance.
Sure.
Does 3 damage to everything, and then if it dies that way, is exiled.
Sure.
We don't really play that one much either.
No, Dam is one of them because it's modal, can either target one individual thing or do a lot. That's seen play more so in the past. We haven't seen too many board wipes. Normally ours are like -1 in general because it does go through the indestructible. I suppose the reason why I really like this one is because it can be really cheap. I think the one reason why people don't play it in red, because normally in red, you play a Grixis pile, and taking 7 from Adnaz does not feel good.
9.
Yeah, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt from Adnaz.
It's gonna suck.
I think the likelihood of you playing this early, like a turn 2, turn 3, is unrealistic, whereas some of the other options you can play those turn 2, turn 3 a lot easier. I think one reason why we don't see too much of play in CEDH for Blasphemous Act is because do board states really matter when Thassa's Oracle comes down and wins the game?
No.
When you dress down something and then your Drannith Magistrate goes away, does it really matter? No.
Yeah.
So there's certain aspects where Blasphemous Act just doesn't do enough. It's a little bit slow, and we can kind of do it better in our different colors. But if you're in mono red and you need a board wipe, this is the one.
Yeah.
This is the one. 2 color, you don't have black, you don't have white, you have red, green. Cool. This is your board wipe. And sometimes in EDH, you absolutely need a board wipe because there's so many times where things get stalled, you can't do anything, and the game goes on for 3 hours, and every last one of you guys knows what I'm talking about. It's miserable. Blasphemous Act says, cool, we're all going to reset, and I have too many lands and artifacts. So, I mean, it's not a farewell. It's a Blasphemous Act. Absolutely.
So, yeah. So, Blasphemous Act sees about 33% of play in EDH decks.
Okay.
So, next up on the list, Chaos Warp.
Ooh, this one is fun. Once again, this kind of feels like the white and the green. You had Generous Gift from white, and then you had Beast Within from green. And this is kind of the same general thing. The owner of target permanent shuffles it into the library. So it destroys any permanent like those other 2 colors. They shuffle it in. This one feels a little bit worse, though. Then they reveal from the top of the library if it's a permanent card, they put it on the battlefield. So land, an artifact, an enchantment, a creature, good to go. It could be a 13/13. But if it's a Blasphemous Act, it just stays on the top of the library. Everyone will know what you're going to draw. It's good. It's instant speed. Like we've said before, with like EDH, we feel like instant speed isn't always there, but killing their guy when they're about ready to go to the combat phase feels great. And for the price that it is, inexpensive, hits everything. So I feel like it's, for EDH, it's kind of comparable to the white and the green effects of the 3 mana, destroy anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you are in lower color decks, maybe you don't have that destroy permanent style effect, and you just need something that destroys a permanent, I think Chaos Warp is a fantastic option. Of course, everyone has their fun stories of when they cast a Chaos Warp and they just got the card back, right? Everyone has those fun little bits.
Sure.
And I think in EDH, that's hilarious.
Yep.
I love those kinds of stories. I think they're fun. But that's kind of the problem when it comes to the CEDH side of things. Now, I think Chaos Warp does see some play. I don't know if Magda plays Chaos Warp.
It can and does only because of like the Pinnacle Monk combos, but realistically, there's a 2 mana one that does basically the same thing at instant speed. There's a little bit less. It's not as good, but once again, it's 2 CMC for the same thing. But yeah, I mean, you don't cast it, so it's not like someone can shuffle the One Ring back into the library, and then it's the top card, and they play it again, and they don't get protection from everything. It's not that. They don't cast it. They put it onto the battlefield. So once again, it gets around Grafdigger's Cage, because they put it onto the battlefield. It gets around Drannith Magistrate, because they put it onto the battlefield. They're not casting it. So there's interesting advantages with it. I mean, like I said, with the white or the green kind of effect with it, too. Would you rather get just a random 2/2 token, 3/3 token, or would you rather get something, a land?
Right.
Personally,
exactly.
I would like a land. I would like the One Ring. I would like an artifact. I would like my 13/13 whatever.
Right.
You know, so
And so I think that's part of the problem when it comes to CEDH side of things, is there's a chance that you hit something significantly worse for you. But there's also a chance that it gets a win con. So it's not bad. It's not a bad card.
Or hits an instant.
Yeah,
and then you can't cast it.
Right, and then you can't cast it, and then you just know what they're going to draw.
And then it's better than the other two colors.
Yeah, then it ends up better because then they get nothing out of it, essentially.
Correct. But it's kind of a roll of the dice, whereas the other ones definitely hit and give something. It sees about 32% of play in EDH, and it's in a lot of precons, and I definitely see people wanting to play it, but I think there's better... If you have more colors to play...
It's kind of your last option.
Wider greens, to me, feel better. It hits any target, and it only gives them a 2/2, whereas Chaos Warp...
A 3/3, I think.
A 3/3 beast.
Yeah.
So it only gives them about a 3/3 beast for those other effects, whereas this one can give them anything. I don't know.
A little scary.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. The next one on our list is Jeska's Will. This one...
I love Jeska's Will.
I do too, and I definitely have seen it see less play in CDH recently.
Well, so Jeska's Will, for those that don't know, Jeska's Will is 2 and a red. If you control your commander, you can choose 2 of the modes that are on the card. The first mode is you add a red for each card in a target's opponent's hand. So just a clarification thing, if someone casts the One Ring on their turn and then you cast a Jeska's Will on your turn, you can't target them.
No.
Just so you're aware.
And if they ask you how many cards that you guys have in hand, they might have this card.
Everyone usually knows that it's a Jeska's Will.
Sure.
Not all the time, but sometimes.
Yes.
The second mode, exile the top 3 cards of your library, and you may play them this turn. So I think Jeska's Will started to see a little bit less play because specifically it only gives you red.
Okay.
Not that red is a bad color to have, but sometimes you would flip off the top of your library and you'd see your Thassa's Oracle, or you'd see your Demonic Tutor.
Sure.
And you have to sit and think to yourself, do I have other mana that I can use for it? Usually you just don't fire off a Jeska's Will if you don't have some other kind of mana production. So I think that's one of the main reasons why Jeska's Will maybe saw a little bit less play. Also, it's one of those cards that if you don't have your commander, it does kind of feel bad to have to choose one of the modes.
Which one would you really pick? Like, they both feel bad on themselves. Sometimes getting 7 mana doesn't feel bad, but you're putting 3 into it, so you're getting 4 extra mana. Okay, not bad in mono red and decks that need other stuff. I mean, artifacts are great because they're colorless, so you can play all those things and then play everything else. Exiling top 3, it's not bad. It's what red does a lot. There's another card that's coming up that kind of does the same thing, where you discard a card and then you exile the top 2. That's a very reminiscent way to have card draw in red. Is rummaging. You discard a card and exile a top 2 or draw 2 cards. We got some other cards that are similar to it. So it definitely does red really well. It's just, man, late game, if no one has anything to draw and you all have one card in hand, it feels really bad. Like in EDH, I don't think card draw is as prolific as in CEDH. So you get this off the top. Cool, you can exile 3 cards. That's pretty good. And you get 1 mana for it, maybe. 2 mana, 3 mana, 4 mana, maybe there's a group Hugs deck. I don't know. Beats me. And they have 20 cards in hand. Cool. Make 20 red. Exile the top 3. Let's go. Definitely a possibility.
I still really like that it rituals, because that's what red does very, very well, is ritual. It's very good at doing this kind of exile off the top type strategy. I think Jeska's Will is still fantastic in storm style lists.
Oh, absolutely.
Both in EDH and CEDH. I think Jeska's Will is a staple of those kinds of decks, for sure.
Modal is always great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So regardless of if you have your commander or not, sometimes you can still take advantage. You're like, if I can just look at like 3 cards, there's a chance that I can find a win here. Yeah. I just need to look, right?
Absolutely.
Sometimes that's great. So I think in EDH and in CEDH, I think Jeska's Will is still a great card. I mean, obviously it sees 17% of play in the EDH side of things. But I think you just need to be pretty specific in your CEDH deck to run Jeska's Will, or you can really abuse the red.
Burgie. Normally you see Burgie with Jeska's Will a lot of times. Cool, you cast it, you make an additional red, and you can do a lot of stuff with that in general.
One of the new Urabrasks was also seeing some play for that same reason, because not only would it make you a red, but you'd also deal it damage to a target opponent.
Sure.
But decks like Kraken Sakashima, this is essentially a win con for us.
Spell slinging decks, huge.
Absolutely
Kess.
Cass loves just as well.
Kess Dissident Mage. I definitely see that. And or the Mizzix.
The Izzet of Migs is Mizzix of Is Magnus. Is that the card?
Mizzix, Mizzix.
We know how to talk.
It's on the screen.
Yeah, it'll be up here. It like gives experience counters for instance and sorcery.
Yes, I love that cycle. It was great.
Yeah, it was really cool. Okay, moving along. So next up on the list is one of the again, it's a rummaging effect. We have Faithless Looting.
Oh.
So Faithless Looting, 1 in a red, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. But it has a flashback of 2 in a red. So you can cast it from your graveyard, it exiles, but you can do the effect again. So
okay.
Faithless Looting, I feel like is always in a weird spot. I feel like even in EDH, maybe it feels a little strange at times.
It feels decent in like a Jund deck.
Sure.
So black to reanimate, green to ramp, and dredge.
Yeah,
definitely some different dredge effects.
And I mean, you're already in red, so obviously we'll talk about it later, but like there's Underworld Breach.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So obviously this helps fuel that a little bit.
Oh yeah, you put 4 cards into your grave. That especially when you like, cool, I have too many lands. It's turn 6. Like, why do I need 3 more lands in my hand? Cool, discard. You draw 2, then you get to decide what you get to discard. Cool, I don't need this and this. Awesome.
Yeah, just get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing with Faithless Looting is when you're only in mono red or you're not in like blue or many other colors, this kind of feels like the only way for you to draw cards, quote unquote, right? Because like Jessica's Will technically draws you cards in a way.
Doesn't put them to your hand.
Right? Whereas Faithless Looting actually draws you the cards and you're just like, cool, I'll just dump these ones that are bad. But even that doesn't really feel like card draw a lot of the time.
It's not card advantage, it's card selection. Selection, yeah.
Right. So I do like Faithless Looting, but you do have to, again, kind of like Jessica's Will, you have to be specific about it.
Yeah.
You have to know that you're using it for its advantage rather than its card selection disadvantage,
sure.
if that makes sense.
Sure.
So if you care about your graveyard, much like you said, like in Reanimator, like if you know you have the piece in hand, you're like, okay, cool, discard my Hoarding Broodlord. And then all of a sudden people are like panicked because they're like, ah, crap, he's got the
reanimate.
Yeah, reanimate the Hoarding
yeah.
Right. So like there are absolutely ways that you can take advantage of Faithless Looting. It's just, I don't know. It just feels like if you really need card draw and you're in a lower color deck, Faithless Looting feels like it's one of your few options.
Well, it's 1 mana.
Yeah.
Cool, do it turn 1. I didn't need this opening hand anyways. Yeah. It's really hard to beat in any color for looking at 2 more cards and being able to use them later on for a breach, use them on for a reanimate. Cool, it's reasonable. And the flashback isn't nothing.
And I think sometimes that's all you need is to just look at a couple more cards because that's just what our decks do in this on the CEDH side of things, and even in the EDH side of things. Sometimes you need you need your Blasphemous Act.
Yeah, exactly.
And
what I was thinking.
You draw 2 cards, you find it, you're like, yes, there it is, and I'll discard these 2 and
top deck hero. Top deck hero is huge. Always, you just gotta stay in long enough and draw enough cards and look at enough cards to get the right one that there's 2 of in your deck. And sometimes, like I said, Faithless Looting is pretty good. It sees play 17%. Not too much in CDH, but EDH, it makes complete sense. Yep. The next one on our list, Vandal Blast. This is 1 red, destroy target artifact you don't control. You can overload it, which would say you may cast a spell. For its overload cost, if you do, change target to each. So you're going to destroy each artifact that's not yours for 5 mana, which is insane late game. Early game, it gets rid of a Grafdigger's Cage, some different ramp. Hey, this guy has too much stuff. He's going off. I need to slow him down. For 1 mana, just like Faithless Looting, hard to kind of beat.
If you're playing EDH and you want to spite play this turn 1 Soul Ring player, you just Vandal Blast their Soul Ring.
They banned everything else turn
right?
1, so
you might as well, right? I'm almost surprised that Vandal Blast doesn't see a spoiler, I guess, but doesn't really see a lot of play in CEDH because it does have a very neat effect, and artifacts were pretty rampant. But I think the fact that it's a sorcery is part of the problem. I think if Vandal Blast was an instant sort of like Cyclonic Rift was
Hmm.
in its overload cost, I think it would actually see maybe some play.
That would be busted.
To instant speed, destroy all the treasures or whatever. Like, obviously, people could still crack them and get their mana, right?
Sure.
But, do it on someone's end step when you know they're not going to do anymore. I think it would be interesting.
Yeah.
But
Ooh.
I think Vandal Blast is great on the EDH side of things.
Yes.
I think artifacts go out of control. You have so many talismans, your commander spheres, like we talked about.
Yeah.
This obviously does not destroy the One Ring, which is kind of crappy.
Okay, let them lose the life. Who cares?
Yeah, at that point. I mean, go to our colorless episode. You can see some of the artifacts that we talked about.
There's some good ones to blow up.
When you can destroy everyone, put everyone else behind, and just launch you ahead because now everyone's lost their mana or their fun artifacts.
Everyone else. I think that's the real interesting thing to this, because it's not all artifacts, it's that you don't control.
Right.
So Vandal Blast sees about 16% on CEDH rec. It seems reasonable if you're in red and your guys are, using artifacts. Sure, use it. I think it's hard to beat.
Yep.
It's hard to beat.
Jessica's will into it and blow up all their artifacts.
Absolutely. 5 mana. So the next one on our list is going to be Deflecting Swat. I love Deflecting Swat. I'm so glad they came out with this. Kind of difficult more to cast right now, but basically it's an instant for 2 in a red. If you control a commander, you may cast a spell without paying its mana cost. You may choose new target for target spell or ability. So say you were to take someone else's commander. Would Deflecting Swat still work?
Yes.
That's awesome. So you can Drake them, Guild Drake them, and now you can use Deflecting Swat. Kind of interesting.
Yep.
Not your commander, but a commander.
It specifically says if you control a commander. So whether or not you steal it or maybe reanimate it if they left it in the graveyard for some reason, for some sort of graveyard loop, you can Deflecting Swat with their commander, because all it says is if you control a commander.
Yep.
So that matters.
In this list right now, all that can really deflect, and you may choose new targets for target spell or ability. Realistically, what we've talked about in red right now, the only thing this can really interact with would be like the Chaos Warp. Cool, it targets something. But as far as like Vandal Blast, you can't redirect a Vandal Blast.
Well, so I mean, to be fair, you can Deflecting Swat at Jessica's will target of the player, for instance. I have seen that come up where people are cast a Jessica's will, target the person with 7 mana, and person says, okay, I'm going to respond. I'm actually going to Deflecting Swat it to you because you have 3 cards in hand.
Ooh.
And now all of a sudden they paid 3 mana to get 3 mana.
So they basically just exile top 3 cards.
Top 3 and don't really. Maybe they get something,
Okay.
maybe they don't.
Okay.
So you can do that. You could use it on a Vandal Blast if you were doing the 1 mana version of Vandal Blast, but you wouldn't be able to hit that person's stuff.
Sure, you'd be able to hit someone on the other side, and they need to have one.
Exactly.
Okay. So it can do stuff, but normally it's like, cool, someone's going to kill your commander. Cool, I'm going to Deflecting Swat. The other thing with this, and you want to talk about how we actually use this as like a counter spell against other counter spells.
Right. So say, for instance, somebody puts a Path to Exile on the stack.
Sure.
Targeting, I don't know.
1/1 goblin.
A 1/1 goblin, sure. Doesn't matter.
Sure.
Path to Exile on the goblin. So somebody then goes, okay, I'm going to cast an Offer You Can't Refuse, targeting the Path to Exile.
Cool. Counter spell, yeah.
So in response, you say, okay, I'm going to cast Deflecting Swat, targeting the Offer You Can't Refuse.
Okay. Redirecting the offer to...
So what happens is if Deflecting Swat resolves, the Offer You Can't Refuse targets the Deflecting Swat itself.
Okay.
And so what ends up happening is it resolves, but that's because there's nothing on the stack no longer to target.
So the person that casts the Deflecting Swat doesn't get the 2 treasures?
Correct.
Okay. The stack is very confusing, and you have to resolve it. So you have swords, you have a counter spell, and you're Deflecting Swat. What happens is Deflecting Swat resolves, it goes to the graveyard, and now all you have is...
You had an offer targeting a Deflecting Swat, which is no longer on the stack, so it fizzles.
No legal target.
So then the Path to Exile is back on the stack, and then it can be responded to again if you so choose.
Or bye-bye Gabo, because no one wants that.
Exactly. So Deflecting Swat we use as a counterspell in CEDH a lot
against
of the time.
Other counterspells.
Sometimes it's great for that redirect. Sometimes it works that way where we want something gone that maybe someone else doesn't. For instance, let's say there's a Drannith Magistrate on the field. We talked about it in white.
Yeah.
And you really don't want that Drannith Magistrate gone because you know the person that is like lightning bolting the Drannith right now can win if that Drannith is gone. So
Sure.
you deflecting swat it. You're like, I'm going to hit my own commander right now or something. If
The
it's
only
the only
other
thing
legal
on board,
target. Yeah, sure.
because I just don't want you to have your commander. I can live without mine for a little bit.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of interesting play when it comes to deflecting SWAT. There's a lot of ways that we can use it. And the fact that we can cast it for free if we have our commander is awesome.
We're missing the most important thing. So we haven't got to black yet, but there's one reason why Deflecting SWAT said, we're going to stop playing this card altogether. So there was a card that was Peer into the Abyss.
Yes.
It basically says, cool, you're going to lose half your life, draw half your deck, and you get to target a player. You normally target yourself. Deflecting SWAT, this card used to see a lot of play in CDH, and what they would do is say, I'm going to Deflecting SWAT that ability to myself, and I'm going to draw half my deck and lose half my life. And people stopped playing it really quick as soon as they figured out, oh, this is if I play this card and they have Deflecting SWAT, I just give the game away.
Yeah, absolutely. This happened in a top 4 of a tournament.
Yep.
And the person ended up winning the game because someone went for a Peer into the Abyss. They deflected, swatted it to themselves rather than the player that wanted it to happen to themselves. Yep. They drew half their library and the game was over. It happens. It absolutely happens. Like, there's so many good reasons to play Deflecting SWAT. Yep. Someone wants to we could go on forever, right?
Yes.
Great piece.
In CDH, this thing is amazing. In EDH, I don't think there's, and maybe when we get to blue, I don't think we have much counter spells in general. I could be completely wrong, but I don't think using this, I think this is more so anti-removal, don't kill my commander, I'll kill your commander.
A protection piece.
Yes, I think it's more of a protection piece. I might be proven horribly wrong. If you guys know better than me, let me know down in the comments why I'm horribly wrong and why everyone plays a bunch of counter spells in your EDH meta.
Cool. All right, let's move on from Deflecting SWAT.
The next one on our list is going to be Abrade. So we definitely took a big hit from going from Deflecting SWAT being about 16% now down to Abrade about 11%. So, you know, the top 6 cards are played heavily in red. So Abrade is really, really good. It's kind of like that Vandal Blast, but it's very modal. So Abrade is 1 in a red, and you can choose 1. Abrade either deals 3 damage to a target creature, or you destroy an artifact. This card is insane. Cool. Kill your Drannith Magistrate, kill your Tymna, kill whatever you really need to do that's a 3-but or less. Mm-hmm. But then it also gets rid of an artifact. Once again, your Grafdigger's Cage.
Your Basalt Monolith on Kinnan's board.
Oh, insanely good. In Magda, you can turn anything into an artifact and then use this Shatter effect to actually kill anything on board outside of indestructible, like the One Ring. But hey, we try. So some people don't realize that. Like, cool, I'm going to go for my Underworld Breach. Cool, I'm going to turn it into an artifact, and then I'm going to blow it up. Okay, great. Haven't done it yet. I'm looking forward to when I do. It's in the back of my mind. Sometimes you have these cards in your head, you're like, this could work this one way. And having that modal ability to really say, cool, it always deals 3 damage for 2, which...
better effects, but I mean, still good to have.
The modal piece of it, that it can hit
That's
multiple things. It does what you want to do. Most things in our format, CDH, 3 is
about all you need.
About all you need. Anything you want to say about Abrade?
No, everything that you just said perfectly sums it up.
Okay.
Being at modal and being able to kill a thing or blow up rocks or something that's going to go crazy, Abrade is great.
Yes. And it's instant, so it's insanely good.
Also great.
Sees play 11%. Lightning Bolt. Man, do you want to take this one? I can't handle the history that's in this card alone. This card goes way back.
Yeah, Lightning Bolt. One of the very first cards ever printed, right?
Yes.
Lightning Bolt was way back in the day. So Lightning Bolt, 1 red, deals 3 damage to any target. That's all it does. That's all it does.
That's all it needs to do.
It's awesome. I love, obviously, this was the term, this was the card that coined the Bolt the Bird.
Yes.
Which Birds of Paradise, for those that don't know,
sure.
Because Birds was also one of the first cards ever printed.
Yep, in green, yep.
So Lightning Bolt is a great removal piece. Lightning Bolt is a win con for some decks because it can infinitely, like, you find a way to like have infinite spell cast, and you cast one lightning bolt and everyone dies.
Yes.
Right.
Give it storm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sure.
You can use it as a removal piece on a creature. People maybe get too greedy and they use some life loss strategy and they go down really low and they don't realize you have a lightning bolt.
Everyone
like,
they always ask me, do you have a lightning bolt? I'm like, I wish.
I wish I did, because I kill you right now.
Exactly.
But lightning bolt is great. It's so simple. It's just, there's not much to it really. But it's the fact that it can just, so for those that don't know, in CEDH, there's actually loops that we do with Lightning Bolt. We can do, we talked about it in green, Eternal Witness. We can do Eternal Witness style loops with Lightning Bolt, where we essentially will cast the Eternal Witness. Usually it'll like either get us a rock back of some kind, like whether it's, there's a couple pieces to it and I can't think of it right off the top of my head.
Okay.
But essentially you get the Eternal Witness down, it brings back, for instance, like a Lotus Petal to your hand. I think maybe a Displacer Kitten is where I'm missing a line. But you cast a Lotus Petal, it flickers the Eternal Witness, it gets the Lightning Bolt back. You sack the Lotus Petal for the red, you cast the Lightning Bolt, it flickers the Eternal Witness and gets back the Lotus Petal.
Okay.
And you just rinse and repeat.
Once again, Bolt is hard to beat. With like a Braid, it's only a creature that you can deal with 3 damage to, and it's 2 mana, whereas Bolt, cool. Planeswalker, face, bird, maybe you can use multiple bolts or bolt effects to kill a 6/6 instead. You know, a Braid plus Bolt kills my 6/6 Atali. Good to go. So it's insanely good. 1 mana, instant.
Yep.
If you're playing red, you should heavily consider playing this card. And if you're not, you need to ask, what's better?
Why am I not playing Lightning Bolt?
Why am I not?
That's what you should ask yourself.
Yeah, it's like, why am I not playing Ancestral Visions in blue? Just play Lightning Bolt.
Just do it. Just play Lightning Bolt.
And that sees about 11% of play in EDH.
Perfect.
The very last one. This one kind of feels like it breaks the color pie.
It definitely does. So, Gamble.
Yeah.
Gamble is search your library for a card, put that card into your hand, discard a card at random, and shuffle for 1 red. Gamble is a really interesting tutor.
It's an entomb.
It essentially can't, right? But that's it.
That's how it always is for me.
Because yes, you can gamble and you can lose the thing you tutored for.
Yeah.
Which can happen a lot.
Happens way too often for me.
However, if you're in certain strategies and you have 1 card in your hand and it's gamble, and you want to entomb something because maybe you have an activated ability on board in order to reanimate something, gamble, entomb the card, reanimate it. It's a very interesting tutor in the sense that it's, when you get the card you want, it almost feels better than Demonic Tutor, which is arguably the best tutor in the game.
Yes.
But it's 1 man, it's 1 red.
Yes.
It's 1 red to get the card.
And they're both sorcery.
Yeah, both sorcery speed.
Sure.
I think that it's definitely a feels bad when you pitch the thing that you really desperately needed.
Yeah, you got 5 cards in hand.
And you just so happen to pitch it, and it happens. It absolutely happens. The amount of times I've flipped it and been like, dang it, and then
but
yard.
The name of the card kind of explains the card. You're gambling. You're rolling them dice and saying 20% likely to lose the game right now, and I lost. Okay.
And I think that in EDH, I think gamble feels very fair as a tutor.
Okay.
I think people are kind of down on tutors in EDH. They don't want the kind of consistency. They want the more random kind of effects.
Whatever we get off the top.
Yeah.
Scry lands, surveil lands.
Go for what you got to do.
Sure.
You know, your opening hand was kind of the main thing to pump you, and if you didn't keep maybe something the greatest, you might be...
Commander-centric.
Yeah, commander-centric style.
Get mana, play your commander, beat face commander, win
and
game.
Maybe this feels fair to a lot of EDH players because it's almost fun, right? When someone's like, I'm going to gamble. You're like, bro, you got 2 cards in hand. Where are you going to get it? And we're like, I don't know. We'll find out.
It feels like a scratch-off ticket. Like, okay, hey, guys, am I winning the
lotto?
Here
we go.
No.
Dang it. And you put it in the yard.
Those moments are so fun sometimes, though, when
Yes.
you're just like, okay, and I didn't get there. Dang it. You know,
or you flip that land that was sitting in your hand. You're like, yes, I don't need that. Cast my thing. And, and then you get there, and it's
board wipe. Yeah.
Gamble's fantastic. I really like Gamble.
I think definitely if you're playing red in EDH, talk to your group, make sure it's cool that you guys have it, and I think it's definitely needed for EDH for some level of consistency. Someone's taking over the game. I'm gonna go get my Blasphemous Act and make sure
and pray it stays in my hand.
and just make sure, cool. I got a land and I'm gonna gamble 50-50 shot. Roll the dice.
Let's go for it
and see what happens. Gamble's super good. Sees 10% in EDH, and that's our last on our list for EDH.
Yep.
Nothing too crazy. Removal, card selection,
A little bit of ramp.
and removal.
So
that's
obviously red does something pretty significant in EDH. So
yes.
So yeah. So I think it's time. Let's shift on over. We'll shift on over to the CEDH side.
Okay.
So number 1. Can anyone guess what it is? It's Deflecting SWAT.
It's not Dockside. Dockside is banned. It was the number 1 there for a while, and some people say, cool, Dockside's gone. What's the point in playing red anymore? Deflecting SWAT with some of our other bans feels
not as great.
Not as great, because getting out my turn 1 Malcolm is not as likely. Deflecting SWAT is still incredibly good. Like we said, it is used as a counterspell. It is used as a cool go kill that thing instead. It's used as a draw half my deck and lose half my life. You can hope. And I think we kind of went over it extensively. Not too much else to really say different between EDH and CDH besides we play a lot more counterspells. This sees a lot more play in CDH than EDH. About 78% in CDH. If you got red, Grixis Pie is great. It's the most played one in general, and 78%. I mean, you got to play it in your red.
Yeah, sometimes this is the only quote unquote counter spell you have besides like cards will go over. And I think it's a great piece.
Yeah.
Regardless of the bans that happened, I think Deflecting SWAT still will see play and will consistently see play.
Yeah, same here.
For sure. Next up on the list, Ragavan, Nimble Pilferer. This one is interesting after the bans because some people want to lean into it. Other people feel like it's not going to be great. So Ragavan, for those that don't know, it is a 1 red monkey pirate.
Yes.
Is it a monkey pirate?
It's 1 mana. It is a 2/1.
Yeah. So it is a 2/1. So when it deals combat damage to a player, they reveal the top card of they exile the top card of their library. You may cast it this turn, and then you make a treasure.
So no lands.
So if they get a land, you can't do anything with it.
Okay.
It's gone, exiled completely. Yep. So the reason that people started leaning towards Ragavan a little bit,
the Mox,
was because the Moxes, right? Yep. You could turn on your Mox Opals easier. You can turn on your Mox Ambers easier because it is a legendary.
Yes.
It makes you mana. So it's nice to have. Also, Ragavan also has dash 1 and a red. Where you can put it on the battlefield. It has haste, swing, and then it goes back to your hand at the end step.
Which is great when they don't expect it. Cool, turn 2, they're tapped out, whatever.
Someone went to, like, they Imperial Sealed and put the card they were after on top of their deck, so you haste in Ragavan, smack it, and take their card.
Ooh, and people don't see it coming.
They don't, but that's what you got to do sometimes, man, so they don't have their card.
Come on, man, I was just getting a land. Likely story.
Yeah, sure. Let's find out. Yeah, I see that.
That's demonic. And okay, so he is.
So his Thassa's is in hand. Okay, cool, awesome, guys.
Now I do.
But yeah, so Ragavan, I do understand people why they sort of started shifting when Dockside got banned to looking at Ragavan. I think the main problem that maybe we'll run into, I'm interested to see what people think, but I think the main problem is we're going to start seeing heavier board states.
Yeah.
We're going to start seeing more creatures on the board, and Ragavan's going to have a much harder time getting through.
Yeah.
So it's kind of up in the air.
Green.
I do see why it's might see some play because having that extra treasure generation is great.
Really good. I think having treasures and some kind of way to get yourself going quicker in general is going to be great. Green, I think, is up in stocks, so you're going to see a lot more 1/1s, and of course I'm going to block with my 1/1.
I'm not going to let you get a treasure and get, the good card off the top of my deck. There's no way. I won't let you have it.
I think before even the bans in general, we had a lot more of a board state. Maybe people had 1s or 2s, 3s and 4s, and getting Ragavan out early. Cool. I hit people once or twice maybe.
And then he feels dead.
Some other cards kind of help that out, like you were saying, that the Moxes and some other things to be able to sacrifice Ragavan later in the game to actually do something. But Ragavan sees like barely any play in EDH, and in CDH about 70%, which is great, and definitely a way to speed up the meta if you have those Moxes. I'm on the fence, and you're pro Ragavan.
I think I'm pro Ragavan in the right decks. I
Okay.
do not think that you put him in every red deck.
No.
I've
Blue farm.
always kind of been in that. I could see it seeing play.
Pirate decks, he feels really good.
Yeah, I could see that in something like Blue Farm. But I'm interested to see where he pans out.
Yeah.
But right now he does see quite a bit of play. Like I said, he's number 2 right now. So I mean, obviously people like him, and I think he will continue to see play regardless of how certain people feel about it.
Okay,
for sure. So next on the list, oh look, another card we talked about, Gamble.
Get out them scratch tickets, and we like to gamble. In EDH 10%, in CEDH 62.5%. People like to gamble. People need that one spell, and for so low to put it into hand,
and just put your hands together. Is it gonna be the one I discard? Please let it not be. And if it's not, sometimes you just win.
Okay.
And that's as simple as that. I mean, gamble's fantastic. Okay, so number 4 on the list is going to be an interesting one. So number 4 is Simian Spirit Guide. So this is a 2 and a red ape spirit, I believe.
Yes.
I could be wrong. With very simple text, it says you can exile Simian Spirit Guide from your hand, add a red.
Or you can play him.
Or you can cast him. No one ever casts a Simian Spirit.
Not really.
Unless it's like you get Chaos Warped and you put a Simian on the battlefield. Right?
Oh my god!
I guess whatever.
I got a 2/2 ape.
Hey, a blocker. I block Ragavan. Ha!
So bad if you have to cast it, and sometimes you have to realistically. But it's that extra way to kind of get out quicker.
It's acceleration.
Yes.
It's something that we really care about. Having that little bit just to try to push us a little bit forward. For instance, if we have a Soul Ring in our hand and we go land, exile the Simian Spirit Guide, play the Lotus, like a Soul Ring, and then boom, our turn 1 like Rhystic Study or something.
Great.
That's fantastic. But if we didn't have that Simian Spirit Guide in hand, we would have went land, Soul Ring, pass.
Turn 2.
And then maybe somebody gets something out by then.
They draw a counter
now
spell.
All of a sudden, you go for your Rhystic Study and it's too late because they left that land that they played open in order to counter something like Rhystic Study, right? So having that little bit of acceleration, exile Simian Spirit Guide, gamble in your opening hand.
Great.
So that way you have like almost a full grip, and so the chances of you discarding the card a lot lower.
Sure.
Because if you kept a 7, you draw first turn start, you're at 8. Exile Simian, cast the gamble, you have 6 cards in hand.
Sure.
That's a lot lower chance for you to discard it.
Or 7.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. You'd have 7 in hand. Yep.
Yeah. So it's really mainly for acceleration.
And we want acceleration.
And that's exactly what we want in our side of the format.
Yes.
I'm always stoked to see a Simian Spirit Guide in my hand, in case I wanted to have some like low mana cost things in my hand as well. It's just an awesome piece.
Yeah.
But I understand why an EDH person would look at something like Simian Spirit Guide and say, the hell is this? Why
I don't need this. I'm not going to play this because I don't want to go from turn 5 to turn 6.
I don't want 1 red from a card. This is dumb.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And I don't blame you. I really don't. I don't. So on the EDH side of things, 5% play. So it does see some play on the EDH side. But again, it's probably mainly for that just like one deck that just like, I just need to accelerate this out right now.
But like, what kind of target do you put on your back if you're doing that? Whereas like playing a Signet is very heavy in EDH.
Yeah.
Cool, it makes me mana turn 2, makes me turn mana turn 3, makes me turn mana at 20. Whereas Simian Spirit Guide doesn't do anything turn 20.
Right. It's one off. Gone.
Cool. Right. Yeah, from turn 5 to turn 6. Not crazy. So sees play 62.5% in CEDH. Definitely a mainstay staple if you're in red and you want acceleration. It's an extra Lotus Petal that gets exiled. Not bad. The next one on our list is Underworld Breach.
Obviously, we've brought up Underworld Breach a couple of times on this podcast already, but there is a reason for that. It's because it's part of one of the best win cons in our format. So for you.
It's an enchantment, 1 in a red. Each online card in your grave has Escape. The escape cost is equal to the card's mana cost plus exile 3 other cards from your graveyard. You may cast this card from your graveyard for their escape cost. So you still need to pay the mana. But you exile 3 cards, and man, that doesn't seem that great. I'm going to spend 6 mana to exile 3 cards. and I get my thing back. There's no other real way to get anything back in red
Yeah.
that's a permanent, and that's
Right.
kind of why Underworld Breach is good. Cool. So I play Underworld Breach and it stays for the rest of the game. No. What happens is at the beginning of the end step, sacrifice Underworld Breach. If you're able to skip your end step and have it around until the next person's end step, that'd be pretty funny.
That would be kind of fun. I'm sure there's probably a way of doing it, but it's probably convoluted.
So if someone's playing this, they're probably going to try to win, and maybe they'll say, hey, it's a value Underworld Breach, and be like, cool, show me your hand. Let me believe that you actually are playing a value Underworld Breach. This one wins the game. This plus LED plus Brain Freeze is normally going to...
The game's usually over.
The game's, yeah, cool. Mill everyone out, mill my own self out, and then play Thassa's Oracle, win. I don't see too many other times where they're not winning the game when they're casting it.
Not typically. But here's the thing. Just like you said, some decks run Underworld Breach specifically as a value piece. It's not its main win con. For instance, I was playing Quark and Sakashima, and I had Underworld Breach, but I did not do the Brain Freeze loop. It was literally just to cast spells from my graveyard. But the way that Quark and Sakashima worked with that is if I cast it from my graveyard, and then Quark said you lose the flip, it'd go back to my hand.
Awesome.
Yeah. So for me, it was a value thing, but that's how good Underworld Breach is.
Yeah.
The fact that I can play it without the Lion's Eye Diamond Brain Freeze combo, and it's still such a good piece that I want it around. Because the recursion is just so good.
And it's cheap. One in a red. It's in a braid. It's cheap.
To get access to everything that's in your graveyard.
Yeah.
And when you Brain Freeze and you put tons of things in your graveyard, there's just more, you have access to more stuff, right? If you're concerned that someone's going to do something because they have a Ristic study, you Brain Freeze one time just to like try to get something, and all of a sudden you see a silence go into your graveyard. You're like, cool, cast the silence from my graveyard, and if they don't have a counterspell, it's over.
It's great.
You go crazy, and that's it. GG.
Grinding Station also goes crazy with this one, where every time that an artifact comes into the or onto the battlefield, it'll untap Grinding Station. Cool. You sacrifice that artifact, it goes to the graveyard. You mill yourself 3, and then you rinse and repeat, and you can make infinite-ish mana.
Yes. Well, so for instance, Soul Ring is the one that I think like most people might go to now that Mana Crypt is gone.
Okay.
So you tap it for 2 colorless, then you use the Grinding Station, you sacrifice the Soul Ring, and then you cast the Soul Ring from your yard with one of the colorless. You have 1 left over.
Cool.
So if you need to get color for some reason, then you can like cast a Signet or something later. So there's ways to do it.
People play the Moxes, they'll play the Moxes because they'll make a color of anything. That's one reason to kind of play like your Ragavan plus your Mox Amber plus your Grinding Station. More zeros. We just lost a couple zeros, so now we have other ways to kind of go crazy with it and exile our entire library. Once again, it's like cool. Hopefully there's other stuff in your grave. Otherwise, you're just kind of net zeroing and gaining mana, and hopefully, you can get there. But it's a great card. It's a win condition right now. It's the one reason why I would say you would play red in CEDH.
100%.
If you're not playing a deck with this, it's probably because you're playing Magda or a mono red. But if you're playing multicolor,
maybe Gruul.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe Gruul doesn't want Underworld Breach.
But if you're playing 3 color or more, you're going to be probably wanting to play Underworld Breach, and if not, you might want to ask why not.
And if it really doesn't support it, then we totally understand, and we'll eat our words.
We will. We will eat our words. We will
cook it like a steak dinner.
We will get the Campbell's chicken noodle vegetable soup with all the letters and stuff, and yes, we will eat our soup, and our words. So Underworld Breach sees about 61% of play in CEDH and only about 6% in EDH. Don't think too many people are going looping into their graveyard in EDH.
Right. Probably more for value than anything else.
So the next one on our list is going to be the extra turn spells. Normally, whenever I see people playing Cube, for example, the blue is going to be taking your extra spells. Red seems to kind of like break the color pie at certain different areas, and that's kind of why I really like red. Sometimes people are not expecting certain things. In CEDH, if you're playing red, it's a possibility that you're playing a Final Fortune. Final Fortune is 2 red. You may take an extra turn at the end of your next end step. You lose the game. Instant speed for Final Fortune. There's 2 other ones that go along with it. Warrior's Oath and Last Chance. Both of those are only sorcery speed. There's different times where, you're going to let the next person go, and then on their end step, cool, I'm going to take another turn so it doesn't get to his turn, and I'm going to have to win. And hopefully, he tapped out all of his mana. Before I was worried about him. Now he's all tapped out. Cool. After his turn, I'm going to go off because shields down. I can tap out now because it's not his turn.
Cool. Well, now it is my turn.
Correct. It also goes really well with the black enchantments, necropotence, because you can necropotence 49 and then take an extra turn with Final Fortune, keep your perfect 7, exile everything.
Game's over.
Game win. Whereas like Warrior's Oath, Last Chance, you see that a lot in like Rogsai, but you don't really see that. Personally, I don't see those ones any real.
Yeah, they're a little rough in other places because Rogsai can really take advantage of it with like Ad Nauseam, which is a card we'll talk about in black when we get to black. But it can just pump out so much mana, so easy that it can easily take advantage of a Warrior's Oath and a Last Chance just the same as it could a Final Fortune.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. It's great. Final Fortune will steal games sometimes. Sometimes you just need that one extra turn to win the game. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Correct.
So getting an extra turn out of nowhere, people can't really do anything about it. You take your turn and you win or die. Simple as that.
You win or die, and those are the kind of cards that you really want. Those see play about 59% and 18% for Last Chance, and Warrior's Oath is even less than that.
Mm-hmm.
So really, it's going to be Final Fortune or bust for most decks, and then if you want to, you can add the other two here and there. You want to take the next two, then Nate.
Yeah, sure. So this next card is the reason that people can play Final Fortune. It's Rite of Flame. Rite of Flame, again, sort of feels like almost like a Simian Spirit Guide, so I can understand why people wouldn't play it casually.
Sure. Spend 1 mana.
It is 1 mana to get 2 most of the time. Now, Rite of Flame's wording specifically says that if there are other Rite of Flames in graveyards, you actually make more. Doesn't really come up all that often. It can. Don't get me wrong. It absolutely can.
So the most you could make in EDH or CDH would be 4?
Would be 4, yes, because each one opponent could have 1 in their graveyard, and then
that would be pretty
make
crazy.
3 extra mana, which would be sick, right? But it doesn't come up too often, but it is something to keep in mind when you are casting a Rite of Flame.
Sure.
But most of the time, it's 1 red, make 2, which, again, in something like Rogsai, for instance, what we just talked about, you could exile Simian Spirit Guide, cast a Rite of Flame, make 2, Final Fortune.
Okay.
Now you're taking an extra turn, and then you have all your lands untapped. You keep your perfect 7 if you necropotenced, or if you add Naz again, you just discard to your perfect 7, win, because you have access to your next mana. Rite of Flame is good in a lot of like copy spell decks. Again, Karkashima I brought up again.
Wonderful.
Rite of Flame can be a ritual that ends up making me 50 mana if it just continues to resolve, right? Does it always happen? No. Sometimes I cast it the once and I lose it, and then I only made 4 red mana, but hey, I'll still take it if I can, right?
Yeah, it's an extra Simian Spirit Guide, if you will, that goes to the graveyard that can fuel Breach. It's a little bit more velocity, and that's kind of what you want in red and red-black. Is velocity, and that's where you're really going to take over a lot of times. It's not card draw necessarily, but it's going to be explosive. Cool, get out my 2-drop, get out my 2-drop, get out my 2-drop, get out my 2-drop.
Exile this, cast a ritual, get out my 3-drop, get this, get that. It's so good, exile Simian Spirit Guide, Rite of Flame, land, Jessica's Will, and you just have a crap ton of mana all of a sudden out of literally nowhere. And it just has that ability to do that so well, and Rite of Flame is just an extra piece that does that. So Rite of Flame, about 51% in CEDH, and only about 3% in EDH. Again, the explosivity of that mana just to get 1 extra probably doesn't feel great,
Not great.
in EDH. So,
no.
Wheel of Fortune. Wheel of Fortune is the next one up on the list. So obviously this is a reserve list card. It's very expensive. Proxy it.
Please.
We don't care.
Please.
It's fine. Just proxy the card. But Wheel of Fortune is 2 in a red. Everyone discards their hand, draws 7 new cards.
Perfect.
Simple as that. Now, why have Wheel of Fortune is so good? There's a couple reasons.
Sure.
So number 1, in explosive decks like, for instance, Rogsai, if they have to mulligan down low because they're so good at exploding mana, like some of the ways that we just talked about, it can get out some pieces, get out some rocks, get out some mana, exile, Rite of Flame, whatever, and cast a Wheel of Fortune and get a completely new 7 to look at.
And then play out the rest of your hand and pass turn.
Yeah, play another hand, basically, and be so far ahead of everyone else because they kept their hand thinking, oh, this is perfect. This is what I need to stop everyone. And then it's wheeled away and it's gone. And you have to pray that your next 7 are great.
And sometimes it can be bad. I've gotten like 5 lands. I'm like, cool. This is a non-game now. This guy got down like 8 artifacts turn 1. I'm like, okay, land go. Like it can feel really bad. A lot of times people will use Wheel of Fortune whenever someone like tutors.
Yeah.
Cool. Discard everything in your hand. You tutored for that one card either to your hand, which is good,
Mhm.
or you put it to the top, and now you get that one card, but you didn't have the other card that you needed.
Right. So you were expecting to have that card. You put the card on top, you wheel away the other card that you needed, and you get that one card, and all of a sudden that's a feels bad.
It doesn't matter
And you're
anymore.
like, well, shoot, now it feels like that was a dead tutor, right?
I have one piece of the combo, and the other piece of the combo is
Now in my graveyard because it got wheeled away.
I might as well not have tutored.
I think the other reason that Wheel of Fortune is really good because the other wheels that you see are like Windfall. So Windfall is based on the number of cards in everyone's hand.
Yes, whoever has the
sometimes,
most.
yeah. So sometimes you don't know if you're going to actually get 7 or not. Sometimes you get tons. Sometimes you get 4. It happens, right?
Yeah, it's one reason why we don't play like Thought Vessel in our decks. If you look at the colorless section that we went over colorless, we don't really play Thought Vessel because if you have 20 cards and they play Windfall,
then a turbo deck just got 20 cards, and chances are they're going to find a way to beat you out for sure. But I think Wheel of Fortune is just so simple. Just everyone draw 7 cards, no extra stuff, discard the ones that you have in your hand. And Wheel of Fortune can actually be used as a win con in a way. And so what we can do is with Underworld Breach, say for instance, we don't have Arthas's Oracle.
Yeah.
We actually brain freeze. We use some of the copies to get us really low in our library, but not completely gone. We then use the rest of the copies to mill out the other tables. And then sometimes we use things like Angel's Grace to protect us from losing the game if we don't have enough cards maybe. But we mill everyone else in a way. And then we Wheel of Fortune. Everyone draws, empty library,
lose the game. Same with like Bowmasters. If you can keep looping,
like a Bowmaster with a Wheel of Fortune.
Cool, 21 damage, 21 damage, 21 damage. Game's over. That was great. Definitely is one of those kind of things to go. If you don't have a brain freeze, you can basically discard. Everyone discards. I've already silenced. Cool. Everyone discards. Draw 7. Cool. Do it again, and you keep doing that, and you'll be able to eventually net whatever you really need in your graveyard. Cool. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. Eventually, I'll have everything that I need in my graveyard. Cool. Thassa's Oracle, win.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So I really like it in those like breach packages for sure. Yeah. I love it if you have a Bowmasters. So once again, red, black, insanely great.
Oh, Wheel of Fortune, about 51% of play in CEDH and only 5% in EDH. But I can understand that it's an expensive card and some people probably just don't even want to look at it. Completely understandable. Again,
rule 0.
Rule 0 or proxy it. It's fine. It's fine.
Yep.
We want to take the next 2, Chris.
Yeah, these are some of my favorites. There's some definitely nuances of why you would pick one over the other, and I always forget it, but I think I remember it. So we'll see how it goes. So the next 2 is Pyroblast, which sees about 50% in CDH, and Red Elemental Blast, which sees about 41%. So slightly less. So Pyroblast and Red Elemental Blast, the wording is basically the same thing. Hey, destroy a blue permanent. So basically the same thing, essentially. A little bit different wording. Destroy a blue permanent or counter a blue spell.
Pyroblast is the one that says counter target spell if it's blue or destroy target permanent if it's blue.
Yes.
So it can still resolve. It sees that it's not blue and then just
doesn't
goes
blow it
away.
up.
Why is that important?
That's kind of important sometimes. So we have a couple different spells like Bolas's Citadel, where something's on the top and it's the Pyroblast. Oh, I want to go to the next card below it, and you basically just pay mana into Bolas's Citadel and you cast the top card. So cool. I don't need Pyroblast right now. Cool. I'm gonna target your land. Cool, doesn't blow up. What's the next card? And kind of keep going on with that. Sometimes for Storm, if you're trying to help someone out, right? Cool. Well, they're not casting a blue spell right now, but they are casting a Deflecting Swat. He has 3 mana open. We've only cast 2 spells. Okay, so what I can do is, okay, you have a Flusterstorm. Cool. I'm going to cast this Pyroblast to target your land, and then you're going to cast your Flusterstorm to then counter that instant or sorcery. Very niche, doesn't always come up, but it is kind of one of those things to kind of bring up.
So Pyroblast and Red Elemental Blast, they are counter spells. They're destroy Ristic Studies. They're 1 mana to do those things, and because blue is the prominent thing in countering spells, it's super nice to have them in red as well.
Yeah, kill Kinnan.
My honorable mention is going to be Bergie.
Ooh.
We obviously brought up Bergie, and Bergie does see quite a bit of play, but recently it's been a little bit weird. And again, maybe it sees a resurgence.
Really a turbo deck?
Yeah, turbo like storm style
Yeah.
decks I think really like Bergie.
You're not really
So
playing this like at a mid-range.
yeah, so Bergie is 2 in a red. It's a legendary creature god. And it says basically that whenever you cast a spell, you add red, and then you don't lose red through steps and phases. That is an important part. I have seen people like move through steps and phases and like discard their red mana, even though it was Bergie mana.
Mhm.
But yeah, it does not go away.
Okay.
But then on the backside, I think the backside is the underutilized side of Bergie
Yes.
for sure.
Yes.
So the backside of Bergie is Harnfell, Horn of Bounty. So Harnfell, Horn of Bounty is 4 in a red, and you can discard a card to exile the top 2 cards of your library,
Which is like
which is insane,
it's like an-
especially in something like Storm.
it's like an ad nause essentially, but it's an artifact, and artifacts are really hard to counter.
Yes, exactly.
So it gets through a lot.
Right. So the front side is the mana generation if that's the part you need, right? Say you have your card draw, say you have your cantrips or your whatever. You need the front side to like get that mana going. But maybe you have plenty of mana. Maybe you have a ton of things online that you have just a ton of mana just sitting around. Okay. Well, all these cards in your hand are now okay, I have 6 cards in hand. No. They're 12 cards.
I have all lands. No, I have 12
I have
cards.
12 cards. So I'm going to cast the backside of Bergie. I'm going to discard every single one of these and look at the top 12 cards in my library, which
Pretty powerful.
that's a ton of cards to look at. So
Mhm.
that could get us there. So I love Bergie. I think Bergie's great.
Bergie is insanely good. It sees about 28% of play, mostly in Rogsai and more turbo-ish decks. The next and final honorable mention is going to be Flare of Duplication. This is a newer card.
Yep.
Got printed in June during Modern Horizons 3. Sees about 26% of play. I love this card. I love this card. We were talking about it a little bit with Ragavan, where we can any red creature that's not a token, and essentially it is a fork ability where it says copy target spell. I have used this to copy a Warrior's Oath. I've used this to copy a Gamble. I've used this to use on a number of things, on a Wheel of Fortune to double wheel. There's a lot of different options that you can use for this. You can use it like a deflecting SWAT to an extent. Cool. The biggest thing with red is everyone thinks you don't have counter spells. You do if other people have counter spells. So hey, does everyone else have counter spells? I have interaction for your counter spells to back you up. Red does it really well. As far as like actual counter spells, Flare of Duplication. With this, you have black, you have blue, you have red, you have green, you have purple, you have all the colors of the rainbow that you could ever want. It's just whatever they cast. If your Ragavan is just sitting there because it's not doing anything, cool. Sacrifice it. Play this for free. Otherwise, you got to pay 2 in a red, which isn't horrible for a fork effect, but play your Simian Spirit Guide out. Don't, but you could. And Flare is just so good. I think fork abilities are amazing. Different versions of Magda use a lot of forks to have more of an interaction kind of thing. And that way, cool, I'm not playing Magda early. I'm going to sit back and I'm just going to counter everyone's spells. And then I'm going to go off, which is a very interesting way to play mono red. I think this is a great include. Like I said, 26%. I love this card. If you're playing red and you're not playing this, I think you 100% should. It is disgusting. Free spells are premium, and these are great. So just like with green and white, we kind of go over it. Green had 70% of the meta. White had 18.58. Red is the very first color where it's supposed to be in the EDH meta. It sees about 20.64% of play over 1.2 million decks that we pulled. And it's quite interesting that we're on the third color. We're finally at the spot where everything is like, okay, 20% out of 5. It's where it should be. Did you go into this thinking red's the third most played?
No. In fact, I would. I almost feel like red was going to be towards the bottom, to be perfectly honest.
Okay.
I'm not sure why, because red is explosive and it can have its fun things. But on the EDH side of things, at least in my personal experience, I feel like I didn't see a ton of red when I was playing.
Well, Bolt doesn't kill your 6/6
Right.
dinosaur.
And Chaos Warp is not the craziest, is like a scary piece to use sometimes because you don't really want them to get their Galta or some other huge thing in their library.
Blasphemous Act, sure.
Yeah.
It feels like, cool. Red is really known for like burn.
Yes.
Bolt a bird, bolt a face, over and over and over again. You get one bolt. How many bolt effects can you really put into your deck and try to win the game? You're trying to destroy 120 life. You versus the table, you're not winning red, and that's kind of where I thought it was as well. I thought, cool, it's gonna go red, white, green, and then we'll see with the other two colors.
Yeah.
But I didn't think it was gonna be the third most and the most rounded color for the color pie.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting to see this. Again, sometimes or as I say sometimes, every time we've gone into this, we don't know what the actual statistics are going to show. And it's really interesting to like learn that how these colors are actually distributed.
Sure.
Because I can take a guess, but like my guesses mean nothing.
No.
So when you actually see the stats, it's like, oh, that's interesting that red is actually like where it quote unquote should be at that 20% line. So it's cool. I love me red. So
cool. Through this episode, what do you think what was the knowledge that you think that you really gained from comparing the EDH to CEDH?
I think it really shows that what we're trying to do with red is use the explosive side of it.
Yeah.
Even though we may not be getting a ton of mana out of it, we still value that much higher than other people. Because for us, one extra mana can be the game.
Sure.
And I think that's the main distinction to go off of.
Okay.
Is we care about the explosivity of red, regardless of whether or not it gives us 1 or 2 mana extra. We don't care. That's what we'll use.
That's what we need.
Yeah, like Ragavan, for instance, right? You're paying 1 to get 1 back, but it's a mana of any color, and that's the point you're trying to do, is you're trying to accelerate even 1 mana at a time.
Incremental advantage over your opponents, opposed to a long game. We're trying to reduce the turns from turn 1 to turn 3 really quick.
Yes.
And I think red definitely gives you that explosivity. In red, it gives you some different win cons. It gives you some breaking the color pie, does things that the other cards do. Fork is incredibly good. There's some interesting, unique, and flavorful things in red.
Yeah.
I hope today that we all learned something a little bit about red, and that we know that red is not dead. Dockside did not define red. Red can have other things banned, and know that it's resilient enough to keep going with the punches. We are the Turning Point Meta. We appreciate you guys coming out. Be sure to like, subscribe, and let us know what you thought about what was going on. Do you like our setup? It's a little bit janky, and we're trying it out. Don't blame the editor, blame me. We'll catch you guys next time.
Thank you guys so much. Have a good one.
Bye.